All right, everyone. Lane Kiffin is out at Ole Miss, right? He is going to LSU, and this had a big impact on the betting odds for their national championship. So it went from plus 2,000 to plus 3,000. It moved plus 1,000, which is quite shocking in terms of, how much that's moved. But honestly, part of me thinks that's almost like a little bit shocking in the sense of you may have thought it would move more, right? And this is what's going to be pretty weird to watch over the next few weeks as the college football playoff begins is I'm sitting here wondering, what is Ole Miss going to look like without Lane Kiffin here? Is this a situation where they got the new coach in there, right? For at least for I don't know, is he going to be there for the long term, short term, whatever it ends up being? Um, you know, is this going to be a rallying cry for a lot of these players? Are they going to, kind of rally together and find a way to win some games? Is that what we're going to see? Is this a group of players who actually doesn't blame Lane Kiffin for leaving and they wish he was actually still coaching them and they're upset about the fact that he's not going to be coaching them and they blame, the AD for that? And in that case, I think you might see a team that just gets, destroyed, right? Is this a situation where even though they are mad at Lane Kiffin, they still end up getting destroyed and the locker room's kind of all falling apart? There were a million and one options on the table here. And as good of a season as they were, it's not like they were, the favorites, right? They were plus 2,000 even before Lane Kiffin left. So this is a big thing that they're going to have to deal with. And it really overall, I think when you see something like this and knowing now that you have this team that just lost their coach and it basically at this point, everyone's kind of writing them off. If there's any team that's getting read off right now, it's Ole Miss. It just goes to show they got to change that rule, right? This is something that cannot happen until after the season. It's the most obvious thing in the world. It needs to happen because this is really a disgrace. Even if Lane Kiffin was going to leave anyways, right? Even if Lane Kiffin was going to go to LSU regardless, I think a lot of the frustration would be lessened, right? I think if you're an Ole Miss fan, obviously, as we've talked about, you're pissed at the fact that he's basically saying LSU, is better than Ole Miss here, right? That's what he's saying, and I understand the historical, record on this, right? Obviously, LSU is, one of the premier programs, but the bottom line is new era. This is NIL. Ole Miss is trying to become one of those schools in a sense, right? They're trying to get up, and they thought they had the guy to do it, right? They thought they had the guy who was saying, "This is my home now, right? This is my place. This is where I'm going to be." And to see him jump to LSU is kind of just a shot at them, right? There's no other way to look at it. It's saying you're just not good enough, right? I mean, what else? I just don't know. Looking at this season and seeing where they were, we talk about national title odds. Where was LSU on the national title odds? At the end of this year, not existent because they're not getting in the college football playoff. So look at it from that perspective, it is a little weird, that even though he had Ole Miss rolling, he had them in a good position. I would have loved to have seen how all of this played out. We now are never going to know because he's no longer there, right? And we're gonna figure out, I guess, soon what this Ole Miss team looks like without him. And it's going to be a long off season after that for them to fix, and try to, because Ole Miss's number one goal now has to be, right? Has to be to make sure that they can continue what Lane Kiffin built at Ole Miss, right? That has to be their number one priority. Because if you fail at that, then he's going to win this divorce, right? If you're able to keep this team in the college football playoff, if you're able to get recruits here, if you're able to get a coach that can, continue, I'm not saying continue, his style necessarily, but someone who could bring the results. It's big, right? And that's what they're going to need. So seeing this line movement here, don't think anybody's going to be betting, them to win the national title regardless, because I think it's kind of done. But I found this interesting. Plus 1,000, that's what they're saying the Lane Kiffin effect is. And also there's a level of, you know, when it's happening, these players aren't going to even have a time to fully comprehend everything that's going on. And so you smush all of this together and you get a team that is plus 3,000 to win the college football playoff and the national title. We will see. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.